So I'm redoing this long-running function tool feature of Agent Development Kit because one of my subscribers told me to uh, give some more detailed flow as well as a detailed understanding of the feature. Now, the uh, long-running function tool is can be leveraged for human in the loop in Agent Development Kit. I will explain the flow or the use case that I have created. Then we'll go to the code as well as, or before going to the code, I'll also go through a sequence diagram. That's what my subscriber requested, if there can be a sequence diagram to understand it more in depth, right? And through the process, I will also show the core part of agent development kit, which is the agent loop, event loop part, how that works, right? But let's look at the use case first, right? So let's say I have a chat application, and through the chat application, I'm connecting with a agent, and I'm asking the agent to approve certain requests, right? So when I ask the agent to approve a request, the agent calls a function, human approval function, through which it puts the request to human to approve it, right? Now, the human approval may come uh, many days after I put the request, right? So this is where the long running function tool comes into picture. So when I wrap that function, the human approval function, with the long running function tool um, method or wrapper, as soon as the agent executes the that particular tool, it doesn't wait for the human, in this case, human approval to come. It will return the response to the chat application saying that I have submitted the request. The request is in pending state, right? And the function. So two important things that is required later to check the status is the function call ID and the function call name, right? So in the use case, I created a persistent session store, right? Where so when you create a persistent session store, all the events get stored. As part of the events, I'm storing the function call ID and the function call name also, right? So this function, as part of the events, function call ID, function call name comes to the agent or the runner in case of ADK, which gets stored into the session store, right? So this completes this interaction. Now, to follow up, the chat application starts another interaction, but now to follow up, it needs to go to the session store, retrieve the same session with the app ID, user ID, and the session ID, with which we already stored in the session store. The same session needs to be retrieved. So as part of it, this is actually not, this is function call ID as well. So let me fix this a little bit. This will be function call ID plus the function call name, right? So the same function call ID and the function call name that were earlier stored as part of the session, I retrieve it, and then to the function call ID and the function name, I attach the approval status and give it to and call the runner again, and the runner gives you the final response saying whether it is approved or not, right? I wanted to also do something like this. If it is, let's say, approved, I wanted to trigger the next agent. This part I have not done, but I'm exploring how to do that as well, right? So this is the use case. Now, the sequence diagram for this, right, look like this. So from the chat application, I am saying, please ask manager to approve the report. It goes to the runner. Runner sends the request to the agent loop. Now, if you understand, or if you have gone through agent development kit um, follows the event loop approach, right? So it creates a event loop where as soon as I put the request, right, um, the agent loop creates the first event, which is a tool call, right? Because I have attached a tool to it. It creates a tool call and yields the event to the runner, right? The runner stores that event into the session store. Then the next event gets invoked, which is the tool response, right? First one is that, okay, this is the tool I need to call, or this is the function I need to call. Next, invoke the function and get the function response that comes into your event loop. That event is also yielded, stored into the session store, the persistent session store, and then the final response is also an event, right? That event also gets yielded to the runner. Runner stores it in the session store. Before I go to this part, let me go to the code of this part, which I just discussed in this uh, sequence diagram. We'll slowly go through that code and understand this sequence diagram, right? So let me first go to the human in the loop first, right? So here, as I mentioned, I created the session details. Now here I have hard-coded the app name, user ID, and session ID. In production, you may have already have an app name. User ID, you might want to get it from the LDAP, and the session ID for each interaction, you will probably create a unique session ID. This is where I am uh, persisting the session, right? I created a SQLite database and the database session service. This is a persistent session store which uses SQLite, and I'm creating the session, right? After I create the session, I set up the model. I'm using GPT-4o. This is the tool, right? Ask for manager. Um, right now, I have hard coded the status, like when it calls, like it will, the status will be pending. And this is where I uh, wrap this tool with the long running function tool, right? If you remember, this is the human approval long running function tool, right? So the purpose of this is that as soon as the agent calls this ask for manager, it doesn't wait for um, the response to come back, right? It will return by storing the function call ID and the function call response in the session store, right? And then this is the agent I have, right? Its name of the agent is approval agent. Ask manager approval for any important task using the tool. Output only approved or pending. The tool is the approval tool. Output key is the review status, right? And then I call the runner, right? And then in the interact, the event loops that I was talking to you about, right? So the event loops, right? All this like loop through the event, and when the event uh, is has a content, right, the final response, I store or I return the response to the user or the chat agent, right? That is how it works, right? Now let's go through each of them, right? What happens when I invoke the runner? What happens, right? So let me go to the runner code, right? If I go to the runner code, so when I call the runner, it runs the run async, right? It invokes the run async. In the run async, what it does, where is the run async? Okay. Okay, so no, so this is a run async, right? It calls the run async, and in the run async method, if you see what happens is, uh, okay, so yeah, so the run in the run async, it calls it creates the invocation context, and on the invocation context, it calls the run async method again. Invocation context dot agent, right? On the agent, and this triggers the this run async triggers the event loop. If I go into this run async, right? This is in class base agent, right? And the agent that we created is this one, right? Which is an LLM agent, inherits the base agent. So the run async is instantiated here or implemented here, the run async logic. So if I go to the run async logic, then we'll see, okay, so this is the run async implementation, right? So if I go back again, let's go back again, do it slowly so that it becomes clear, right? So from the runner, I said that it executes the run async, which is this method here. In the run async, you have this invocation context dot run async. If I go to the invocation context dot run async, you will see that it calls the run async implementation on the agent, right? So this is what the uh, so if I go to the agent, LLM agent, right? This is the function. And if you see this LLM flow dot run async, the event loop starts here. This LLM flow is nothing but the auto flow, right? It returns the auto flow, and on auto flow, again, the run async runs, right? If I go to the auto flow is inherited from single flow. The single flow, uh, in the single flow base LLM, if I go to the base LLM flow, right, it calls the uh, run flow. Where did it go? Let me go here. While true, not this one. It is little down. Run async, right? This is what now triggers the event loop, right? So here, see, if it's a loop while true, it is run one step means like it is calling the LLM here, right? And each of this event, right, tool call, right, is now getting into the event loop, right? And the agent loop continues until it is a last event or it is ready to provide the response to you. When it is ready to provide the response to you, finally, I get the last event, like comes to the chat application, right? But till then, it uh, it does an event loop, right? In the event loop, the first thing is that it says, okay, the event is a tool call, right? That means I need to call the tool, right? The second event is the tool response, which is called from the response. And the third one is the final response. When the final response comes, it is the final last call, and that is what gets returned to the chat application, right? That's how this entire thing, event loop, is working, right? And if I run it, I put some print statements. So you'll see that it will create the events, and my event store, the session store is also created here. We'll look into this as well. But if you see the first event loop, this is the first event, which is the tool call or the function call. Then the second event is this, which is the function response. And the third event loop is this, which is the actual text response. Uh, the text response is here. The review status. This is the response, right? The pending response, right? Now, if I look at the session store, let me go to the session store, and this is I was looking at the documentation also. But if I go to the session store, which is this, I have a SQLite, right? So let me show what it has done. So this is the event which sends a request. This is the second event, which is the function call, then the function response, and the final response, right? So all these four are nothing but the initial request also gets logged into the session store, which is this one. Then the tool call, which is this one, function call. Then the tool response, which is a function response. And finally, the final response, which is this, right? So this is what is there in my session store now. And this is what this particular program is doing, right? I asked it a question, right? And then it called the long running function tool, put the status in pending review, right? Now let's do the follow-up. In this one, what I'm doing is, let me go back to the second one. Now this part, right? This part, as I mentioned, from the session store, I'm getting the same function call ID and the function call name. From the check approval, I'm getting the status of the request, adding it to the approval status, and then sending it to the agent. The sequence diagram for this is from the chat, I get the session attribute from the session store, receive the session attribute, right? Then the chat app creates a function response with this um, session attributes and calls the runner. The runner then send the function response to the agent loop. Now, again, two events happen. One is the function response to the tool response and the final response. Those also get logged into your session store. Let's look at the code, come back here to map it to this one, right? So the first thing that I do is right here, the same session ID that I used in the previous program, the same session attributes. Instead of creating the session, now I get the session using these attributes, right? Which is this session here. Now I go to okay, so here I have created a like the same agent, but I named it follow-up agent, right? And I created another custom agent where, like, if the output of this agent is an approved, right, status, I use this custom agent to escalate it or stop the flow, right? And this too, I put into a loop agent, right? So that um, this follow-up agent um, checks the status, let's say, for 5 times within that. Also, if it is not approved, then it will stop. If it is approved, then it will escalate to the check status and escalate and then stop it with the final status, right? But here, before I run that agent, right? As I mentioned, I get the session, right? So I get the session from here, all the events, right? I get the session. Now, all the events, right? I loop through all the events, get the function call ID and the function call name. The function call ID and the function call name. So the function call ID and the function call name, right? This is what I'm getting, the function call ID and the function call name. Then I'm creating the function response, right? I'm creating this function response using the function call ID, function call name, and get request status, I created a dummy method here to get the request. So here I have hard coded. In production, you might be calling, let's say, system to get the request, but here I hard coded to approved, right? So now I create my function response with this three. Then I create the content part with the approved response. This is my content part that I will now provide to the runner as a new message, right? See, I'm using the same session ID, same user ID. Now, the runner now will start the event loop, right? What is the event loop now? It will get a tool response. There is no tool call right now because I already created the function response, right? So there is a function tool response, which is now it will come as approved because I hard coded approved. And then the final response will be uh, approved because that is what I'm uh, telling the agent to return me, right? Because I told the agent to return either pending or approved, right? So that is how this process is working, right? Now um, I run the uh, so I'm doing an async io dot run uh, follow up. Okay, run dot follow up. So this is the one that I'm running now, right? And let's see after I run it, what are my session stored. But before that, let's see what was there in our session stored from the previous one. We had the pending text, right? Now let me run this. We'll see two more events that will come now. I know it's a little complicated. I also took a lot of time to understand this. Now, if you see, okay, it is approved now. And if I refresh it, right? So two more events got added. One is the function response and the final text, right? Which is nothing but the function response and the final response, right? The function response, right? And the text is approved, right? That is how long running function tool works. And as part of this recording, I showed actually you two concepts. One is the long running function tool. And I also showed you how the event loop or how ADK, the core of ADK is event loop and how this event loop works, right? Um, I know this is little complicated. Maybe if you look at the recording one more time, it will be clear. And this code also I will upload so that you can refer to this. Thank you.